In this episode, I have a Toshiba combination VCR and DVD player. Now, don't get your hopes up here because the VCR on this is FUBAR. Someone's been into it, they've buggered it up, and I'm just not going to spend the time on this thing. We're going to be doing more of a teardown on this. This is a really piss poor design. Let's take a look at it. Oh, this is they call it a DVD video cassette recorder. And this isn't one of those ones that just has a DVD player built in. No, this one's got a DVD recorder built in. So this unit here can record on VHS. It can record on DVD. I think it'll do, is it just, it's RW, is it dash R? Or it's plus and dash. RW and plus and dash R discs. And it can also copy tapes to DVD, and I'm sure it can go back the other way. This is my unit. This was given to me. I have no idea whether it works or not. That's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out if this thing works, and if it doesn't, we're going to try and make it work. So I'm going to try putting this thing through all of its paces. Obviously, I won't be able to record a copy protected tape because they won't record macrovision tapes, and that's the downside to these combination units, that you cannot record copywritten material on them. Whereas with a standalone, you still can't do it, but with a standalone, you can use macro scrubber to bypass the copy guard on the standalone machines. But still, these are kind of neat in the fact that it's a single box solution for archiving your home videos directly to DVD, and that's what they were designed for. This is probably one of the last ones that was actually sold on the market, these Toshibas. And I've got I think I've got 3 Toshiba decks, which are basically the same DVD recorder, because it was from the same era as this without the VHS, and they've been excellent recorders. Probably some of the best ones I've got as far as picture quality went. The Toshiba's really nailed it. Anyway, let's get into this thing and see what it's doing. I'm going to pull the top off it before I even connect it. You can see on the back that this unit has a full complement of input and output connectors. It also has a built-in tuner. Now, whether this receives digital channels or just analog, I don't know. It was made in 2008, so it should technically have a digital tuner in it, but a lot of them did not. We'll check that out anyway. It's also got your analog input and output, as it shows. It's got inputs for the this one here, DVD VCR inputs. It's got an S video in, as well as audio and video inputs. And it's got an audio video output. This is for the DVD and the VCR portion. The DVD also has its own dedicated sets of outputs, so it's got component outputs. It's got S-video output. You've got the composite out over here. It's got a separate set of audio outputs. It's got a coaxial digital output. That's for movies and stuff that would have Dolby Digital sound. And it also has over here an HDMI output, so it'll upscale to a high definition signal. So the first thing I'm going to do after connecting up the cable is I'm just going to go through an auto preset and to see whether the tuner works. So I've got this hooked up to my house cable, and we'll see whether it gets my house channels that are in analog. I haven't got this hooked up to the digital cable. We can certainly try that again, but I'm going to see whether the tuner actually tunes anything in first of all. Okay, well, for starters, we know right now that the tuner is not working because I tried scanning both my analog input as well as the off-air digital antenna, and nothing tunes in. Even when I select the channel manually, nothing comes up. We have no drum power. See that? So we have, I think, a power supply problem on this unit, and that would explain why the tuner's not working, because I'm sure they're all one and the same. We have no drum power, we have no tuner power, and we probably don't have any DVD power either. Interesting. So we have to see what's wrong with this thing. This one could be an interesting one. So exactly what is and is not working on here? Well, we know that the drum motor is not working, and the capstan motor also doesn't work, because if I load the tape manually, or if I load the mechanism manually, you'll see that the capstan motor doesn't appear to rotate as well. The drum motor doesn't rotate. The only thing that actually does rotate is the loading motor here, and the loading motor to thread and unthread. Remember the old combo TV VCR and combo DVD players that they had out there for a while? Yeah, they were always fun to work on. Spend more time taking one of those things apart. Customers get pissed. They say, "What do you mean it's $85 to clean the heads?" I say, "You realize how much work was involved to get that VCR out just to get at the heads to clean them?" Yeah, they were fun. It was even funner when the guy came back after putting the same tape in again and clogging the heads up, and he was back the next week with his heads all clogged up on his combo player. You know, kids tapes usually, right? That's what we used to always blame. We knew it was porn, but we used to blame it on the kids tapes. So all those damn Disney tapes. Okay. Yeah, don't worry, I've got the unit unplugged. There is the deck out of the way, and as you can see, here is the power supply board. I'm just staring at this thing for a minute to see if I see any protectors. I see a regulator down here, and I'm looking to see if I see any of those little ICP protectors. I don't see any bulged caps, but I'm looking for fuses and protector circuits. But I do see some regulators here. And whenever I see these 4-terminal regulators, I get nervous because they have a tendency to go bad. Before I tear into this too far, I want to make sure that the DVD player also doesn't work, or does work, or we'll see here. I want to see if the DVD player reads anything. Okay, that's spinning. Is it just a VCR problem, in other words? Because the on-screen graphics is working off the DVD player, as you'll see. And it looks like the DVD player is going to work. Okay, so that part works. It's just the VCR that's not working. That's good to know. So that tells me that the power supply and everything on here is relating to the power supply is working. And it plays a disc. And I'll open the disc up, as we know that part works. Now we just have to figure out what's wrong with the VCR side. Well, wait a minute, there's a plug that's unplugged here. I wonder, maybe somebody else has been into this unit. I have a feeling that maybe somebody else has been into this thing now that I see a plug that's undone. Yeah, somebody's been into this, because this plug was undone. I just noticed that it was just sitting there like that. Somebody else has been into this unit. So it's been into a shop, and they've probably told them it wasn't worth fixing. But let's just pop the board out here and take a look underneath this board and see if I can spot anything. So I'm going to remove the deck itself. Remove the deck screws, and it should lift up so we can inspect underneath the tape transport. The amount of disassembly that you have to put these things through just to get at them is ridiculous. No wonder these people never fix these things, because the amount of work needed to remove different things just to get at it, it's just ridiculous. I gotta remove all these brackets just so I can get the board out, because the chassis itself is actually secured to the bottom of the board, but they're not on the bottom of the chassis. They're actually through the board into the chassis, so you have to remove the whole board to get to the bottom of the chassis. Does it make much sense? These machines were never ever designed to be repaired. These units were designed so that when they broke, they went in the garbage. And that's exactly what most of them have done, and that's probably what I should be doing with this one. So I've got the DVD deck out of it now. I have to unplug this power connector that goes over to the power supply because there's another screw underneath here that has to come out. You know, and how I'm going to test this thing when it's apart, that's the problem. You get this all apart, you can't power it up with all the components disconnected. So, I mean, it's still another screw holding this thing somewhere. Talk about a stupid design. You actually have to remove the bracket that holds the power supply in place, so you can lift the power supply out, and then the tape deck can lift out. Well, sort of. It's hardwired to some switches on the front, which you have to actually remove the screw from because they don't unplug. Whoops, just dropped one screw. Let's see if we can do this without dropping another one. Okay, now, with any luck, I can lift this chassis out and see if there's anything that I can spot on the bottom of it that's at fault. Yeah. Wonderful design this is. Not. Remember what I said before about the Toshiba decks that I have being some of the better ones that I have got? Well, I wasn't referring to the build quality. I was referring to the picture quality. The standalone Toshiba recorders that I've got actually do record a very good picture on them. And for the slower speeds, like the 4-hour and the 6-hour speed, they do a better job than, say, my older Panasonics did at that speed. But this thing here is a joke. Like, you can't even separate the deck from the board because they haven't put plugs for the capstan motor and the drum motor. They've actually soldered them right down. So when this unit was built, it was built and was never intended to be taken apart and serviced. Want to clean your mode switch? Good luck. There it is. This connector here, this is the combination. I believe this is drum and capstan motor. This is going to be the audio control head. I don't know what this is over here. I'm just trying to see where these cables go through, where these multi-connectors go through and connect. And good luck changing the belt, because to change the belt you got to take all this off. There might be enough slack that you can do it, but it's not going to be an easy one, that's for sure. Not a very good design. I should just reconnect the tuner on this thing and see if it'll actually tune a station in with that board that was disconnected on one side here, because the tuner might be working. I'm looking at this like, okay, the tuner's not receiving anything because when I was trying to receive a signal, the tuner over here wasn't plugged in fully. It was on one side was unplugged. I'm curious as to maybe the tuner actually is working and it's just a motor problem for the capstan and drum motor. So I'm just connecting up the antenna. Okay. DVD player is here. Power. Okay, now we switch this over to... Okay, excellent. So the tuner is actually working, as you can see. That's good. Okay, that's one less thing I have to worry about now. It's just going to be the tape motor problem. So when I load this up, as you can see, the capstan motor. Oh, the capstan motor came on that time, because that's what drives the... Interesting. Yeah, the capstan motor, the drum motor just came on. Unbelievable. I think we have a bad connection problem on this thing. I think this thing's got a connection problem. And taking the board out, I flexed something. Interesting. I'm a little bit more optimistic than I was a few minutes ago that I'm going to be able to resolve this thing. The problem is trying to work on these stupid edge connectors. I got to take everything all apart. I don't want to damage any of these connectors, right? So I'm just gonna take everything apart. I'm gonna turn this thing over and I'm gonna look closely with my magnifying glass on here and see whether I can spot anything that may look questionable. The first ones I'm going to resolder just on spec are these regulators. This one here kind of looks maybe a bit flaky, but I'm going to do that one. I'm going to do those anyway. And then we'll see whether we make any progress on this unit. I will connect everything up before putting it all back into its case too, even though it seems like it's starting to work. So I don't know whether I got it or not, or just by fluke, but a couple of these ones here don't look to be too swift. This one right here, for example, on the end here. This is lead-free crap on this board too, so. You see what I mean by a piss poor design? You can't even pull the board off of this thing. You've got only a few inches of clearance on what they give you on these jumpers. I want to take a look at the connections on the bottom side here, on this other little board here, the capstan motor board, and I've got no clearance to even inspect them because I don't really want to unsolder this and that to get the board out of here to do that. But there's not a lot of options on this thing. It's just they didn't bother connector. You know, they didn't bother to put connectors. Had they put connectors on there, then we could have just unplugged it. But oh no, that's just makes too much sense, right? A few connections I really don't like the look of when I'm looking at them with the magnifier are a couple of the ones here on this power connector. Now this is the connector that brings power in from the power supply. In fact, I'm going to reflow every single connection on this board that looks like it might be. I'm going to inspect every one of them and just go over everything. Like this one right here. I don't know if I'm on camera there or not, but that one there looks like it could be bad. Looks like it's not soldered down properly. So I'm convinced that we have a connection problem on this unit, just due to the fact that it didn't work until I took it all apart and then it started working. The only thing I unseated and reseated was this connector too from the top side. When I was in the business, I never got to experience this crap because I left the business in 2003 and this was made in 2008. So I never got to experience what some of the guys that hung around there till the end of that service industry got to experience right at the end there. I'd say I got out when the market started to turn towards throwing away things and replacing them. When VCRs were on the decline and when DVD players were on the decline and CRT televisions were on the decline, that's when I got out. And I got out at the right time, I think. Because I know people that did hang in there right to the end, and most of them lost their shirts at the end. A lot of them went bankrupt just because there was no money in the repair business anymore. So I think I made the right choice when I got out when I did in 2003. I wish I'd gotten out a few years prior to that, but I hung around till 2003, and I could see the writing on the wall. And the stuff that was around in 2003 wasn't as bad as this. At least it was somewhat serviceable. This here is totally non-serviceable with this bullshit, right? Just hardwiring down connectors. That's just cheap. That's just to save a penny on putting a connector on there. But it just makes servicing it impossible. Okay, I've gone through a fair number of connections on the board in the power supply region. I'm going to just power this thing up one more time here before I put it in the cabinet and see whether it does what it was doing before. In other words, working. See whether we can get a picture. Maybe even if I can get the VCR to play. I'll hook up the tuner here. Make sure nothing's shorting out anywhere here. Nothing's going to touch anything. There's nothing metal around that's going to cause a problem. Power. And that's working. And, oh, I guess I have to cover these up. Let's just try putting a tape in here and see whether the drum is spinning. But I got so much light in here, I'm probably firing off all the sensors. They're probably going off all at once here. Let's see whether I can get a tape to go into it. Well, it loaded the tape. I think what we'll do now, I'm going to put the thing back in its cabinet, because it's doing more than it was doing before. The drum wasn't working before, and now it is. So I'm going to reassemble this thing in its cabinet before I try testing it again. Because the problem I've got is I've got these light sensors in here, right, that are just, there's so much light in here, even if I put a shadow over it, there's still a lot of light here, which when it's in the cabinet, they're kind of shielded. So let's put the cover, let's put it back into the box and see whether I can get any operation out of this thing. Because it's doing a lot more than it was when I started, which was, had no motors. So I'm just going to disconnect these connectors one more time here so that I can put this thing into its cabinet. Okay, that's got the unit sort of back together. It should be enough that I can power it up. Let's see if anything happens now. Well, the tape went in. Let's press play and see what happens. Unfortunately, this unit has a problem with the capstan motor. The capstan motor won't go forward on it. So I'll load a tape and it won't move forward. If I put a tape in here, turn it on. Drum motor and everything's coming on now, but it won't go forward. And I put it in play, and it says it's in play, but nothing's happening. The drum motor won't go, and it'll just shut down. Now, the capstan motor does have power because it's fed through that same ribbon cable that feeds to the drum motor. The drum motor here is attached to the capstan motor, which is attached by that ribbon to the main board itself. But let's say we may have a problem with the capstan motor on this unit, and just due to the very shoddy construction of it, I'm hesitant to take it all apart again and investigate any further. What I would like to determine though is, does the DVD recorder actually record? We know it plays, so I'm going to get a blank rewritable disc and we'll try this and see if this thing makes any recordings. So I'm just going to load, I think this is a blank disc, find out pretty quick. Gonna load a blank disc and see if I can make a recording on here and see if that part works. Well, it looks like that's got the recording that I made on the light on still on here, which it is. That's the recording I made on the light on machine the other day when I was working on that. So we'll just stop that recording and I'll just hit record here now, and we'll just actually record a second chapter with this one. This is a rewritable disc, a DVD plus RW that I'm recording on. So let's just see if this thing actually records. Now I know I'm probably going to get the trolls out there that give me a thumbs down because I'm walking away from the VCR portion of this and not going to continue on it. The reason I'm not continuing on this is because of the piss poor design of this device. Never designed to be serviced. It's got a lot of plastic in it. And chances are the problem is going to be that capstan motor itself, because the servo and everything is on board to the actual motor. the drive IC and everything's on there. So chances are it's the motor that's bad, and I'm not getting a motor for a 10-year-old machine that was never designed to have parts available to fix it. So it's been recording for a few minutes. I'll stop the recording here and we'll try to play this back. See whether the second title has recorded, which I'm sure it has, because I think I would have got an error if it wasn't going to work. Hit play. It should play back. Okay, that's the one I just recorded. If I go to my disk menu, I think I can go to disk menu, or do I have to stop it? I have to stop it first. If I go to disk menu, there it is. So there are the two recordings. That was the one that was recorded by the light on, and here's the one that was recorded with this one. Actually, here's a prime example of how much better this machine records in the light on. So if I start this one, this is the recording made with the light on machine, right? You can see how washed out it is by comparison. And then if I go to this recording, see, it's not as washed out. I don't know how it comes across on camera, but the black levels are certainly better. But I say these Toshibas really had a good, they were really good recorders. But then if we look at the chipset in here, we'll see. If we look at the chipset in here, it's Panasonic. They're good units. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this thing together, and I'll just keep this machine. It's my machine, so I'm just going to keep this machine as a DVD recorder, so I can just add another one to my collection. You can never have too many DVD recorders, right? And I don't care about the VHS player portion of it. It'd be nice if I could get it to work, but I'm not gonna make the effort on this thing, because chances are it's never going to get used. Most of the stuff that I archive is archiving off of 8mm anyway, so I'd just be plugging this into an 8mm or a DV player. So there it is, back together. I'll use it as a DVD recorder. I don't need the tape deck function of it anyway. I've got lots of VHS machines, so it might find its way into service at some point, or I might just sit on it, or I might sell it off cheap to somebody who's just looking for a DVD recorder and they don't care that the VHS portion doesn't work. But let's say somebody else was into this before I got it, as they left stuff disconnected. So it's already been written off by one tech. I'm writing it off again, and at least you guys got to see how piss poor the construction was on this piece of crap. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one real soon. Now someday I may actually get back into this thing again and remove that capstan motor, because I'm thinking maybe the problem might be on that multi-connect. But those are so darn fragile. When you unsolder them, the little wires in there actually will start to melt the plastic. So I was hesitant to take it apart, but maybe some other time in the future we'll tear this thing all apart again and have another go around at it. But at this point, I'm going to say forget it.